two recent articles show the stark difference between traditional legacy auto manufacturers' view of safety and Tesla's. And speaking of safety, should Tesla license their hardware and software stack to other manufacturers? Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All, so I'm going to start with an article about Toyota affiliate Daihatsu, which is a subsidiary of Toyota. It's not Toyota themselves, but it is important because it is one of their subsidiaries, and they rigged crash tests for 88,000 of their vehicles, and I'm going to compare that to something recently that happened with Tesla. So, from this Reuters article dated April 28th, Tokyo, Toyota affiliate Daihatsu rigged part of the door inside collision safety test carried out for some 88,000 small cars, most of which were sold under the Toyota brand, the company said on Friday. They said the door trim on the affected vehicles had been modified with a, quote, notch to minimize the risk in testing that the door interior could break with a sharp edge and cause injury to an occupant when the side door airbag deployed in an accident. The modification for testing was not part of the production vehicle, the company said. Toyota chairman Akio Toyoda said the companies were investigating how the side panel of Yaris and other models had been changed for the safety testing and apologized for what he called an unacceptable violation of consumer trust. Just to be balanced, I'll continue reading this. Toyota said it had not received any report of an accident or injury related to the rigged side crash test. It was not immediately clear who had rigged the doors for the crash testing, how widespread the knowledge of the action had been within Daihatsu, and whether senior managers had approved the step. Quote, we'll proceed with a detailed investigation from here on, but promise to decisively understand what happened at the site, investigate the true intentions, and sincerely work to prevent a recurrence. End quote, Toyota told reporters. We're going to need some time to do that, he said. And in case you think they just did this out of the goodness of their heart, Daihatsu said it had discovered the rigged safety tests after a whistleblower report. It said it had reported the issue to regulatory agencies and stopped shipment of affected models. So they sort of did it, but they also got busted. That's why they did it. The affected models include Toyota Yaris Atvis made in Thailand from last August and Perodua Axios manufactured in Malaysia starting from February. Of the 88,000 plus vehicles, some 76,000 were Yaris models mainly bound for Thailand, Mexico, and Gulf Cooperation Council countries, Daihatsu said. And then this article continues on, and of course I will leave a link to it in the description so you can read it yourself at length. And this goes on the heels of, I think it was last year when Toyota was also busted similarly to Volkswagen for rigging emissions tests to make their cars look like they emitted less particulate matter and things than they actually do. And let's contrast this recent article with one from just today from Electric. Tesla is building a crash test lab in Austin. And by the way, a shout out to Fred Lambert for writing this article. Reading along, Tesla confirmed that it is building a new crash test lab in Austin to further improve the passive safety of its electric vehicles. It took a while for Tesla to get credibility in the auto industry, and while it still has naysayers, it has made itself undeniable by profitably establishing the capacity to produce 2 million electric vehicles per year. The capacity to produce electric vehicles en masse profitably is not the only way Tesla gained credibility within the auto industry. When designing and engineering a new vehicle, the priority is, or should be, safety, and Tesla has surprised many on that front over the years. And if you don't know, Tesla and Elon Musk over and over and over again say safety is, primary job. It's the most important thing that they do there. The Model 3 has won several safety plaudits, including 5-star ratings in all categories and the lowest probability of injury ever tested from NHTSA, 5 stars from Euro NCAP, while being hailed as setting a, quote, new safety technology benchmark, end quote, and 5 stars from the Australian NCAP, and so has the Model Y, by the way. Since then, virtually all Tesla vehicles have achieved similar industry-leading safety ratings. Tesla has made some advancements on the active safety side of things, and that's what is mostly talked about in the media through autopilot and full self-driving beta. However, there's an argument to be made that Tesla's passive safety is even more impressive. And by the way, if you haven't seen Tesla's video on their passive safety, I will put a link to that in the description as well. Well worth watching. Recently, Tesla has explained how it is using the fact that its vehicles are highly connected to collect an incredible amount of real-world crash data and use that to improve its safety in crashes, including in the impact report, and I will leave a link to that above. The automaker has used its crash test lab in California to test its results. Now we learn that Tesla is building a new crash test lab in Austin, which is their new headquarters. A Tesla recruiter Automaker wrote in LinkedIn last week, y'all asked for it, Tesla provided. Tesla is building a crash test lab in Austin, Texas. We are hiring engineering technicians to support the crash test lab. Tesla is listing a job for an engineering technician passive safety crash test lab role. The automaker wrote in the job description, the passive safety crash and sled test team is responsible for executing, analyzing, and reporting on crash and sled tests within required program timelines, primarily focusing on vehicle development, regulatory certification, and consumer protection crash testing. Team consists of test engineers and engineering technicians specializing in vehicles and mechanical instrumentation and anthropomorphic test devices, or crash test dummies, and imaging. Not much else is known about Tesla's plan for a new crash test lab in Texas at this point, or if it is going to add to or replace the lab in Fremont. So obviously starkly different reports here. We've got Toyota through Daihatsu trying to rig their tests to make it look like the cars are safer than they are. And in the meantime, we've got Tesla collecting real world data, and it is impressive how much data they have, and it goes way beyond the NHTSA tests. But anyway, they're not just trying to do well on the NHTSA and other tests, they're actually trying to make their cars safer in the real world. So they don't just care about the few tests that NHTSA and Euro NCAP and those folks do, they care about actually protecting the occupant in all environments. And their impact report shows that. And like I said, if you're interested, you should definitely watch my video about that. So of course the question for any reasonable person is, which type of car would you like to get into? Remember, a Yaris, those type of vehicles are very, very small. And if they're cheating the crash test safety, that means they're less safe than you would think that they would be. And so they might actually be less safe than you even think they are. And they're generally less safe than a larger car. If you can afford a vehicle, and I know a Yaris is in a totally different ballpark than a Tesla Model 3, etc. But if you can afford a Tesla at this point, there's no reason why you should be buying anything but a Tesla. You want the safety, even beyond the fact that it's an EV and it's the best car out there and it will cost you less to own. It's the safest car you can buy. And why would you risk your and your family's health on anything but the safest vehicle out there? And of course, let's not forget that when Tesla actually does release their new Model 2 vehicle, eventually that is going to be safe as well. And for the size category, I'm sure it will be smaller, but it still will, I guarantee you, because Tesla cares about this, it will be the safest car in that category ever tested. Now, it may not be the safest car ever tested because if it's a lighter vehicle, they just can't compete against really, really large things, but it's going to be as safe as it can be for that size vehicle. And speaking of safety, after my video yesterday, which you can catch here if you haven't seen it yet, one of my Patreon patrons suggested, and it's something that we've talked about before, but it rang a bell in my head, that Tesla really, really does need to license their hardware and software stack and give it out to other vehicle manufacturers. What am I talking about for that? I'm talking about their camera suite and eventually their high definition radar, and of course, most importantly, their full self-driving hardware board and the software that goes with it. Now, I think the context that people have generally spoken about before is in the context of full self-driving. So Tesla solves full self-driving and they get something where the car can drive itself, and they need to, in order to get this out to as many people as possible and be as safe as possible, they need to get that out and license it to other manufacturers because they just can't produce all of the vehicles that need to be produced in the world at any given point. So if they can license the hardware and software, we're talking about a situation where more people can be safer because of full self-driving. And of course, there's the convenience, etc. But even in the meantime, these other companies should be looking to license Tesla's hardware and software, because as it stands right now, this technology makes my Tesla much, much safer. So remember, we talked about passive safety in the earlier part of this video, but what I'm talking here is active safety. It's things where the car is always looking out and it's looking all around itself instead of just the kind of dumb radar thing that's in front of most cars right now. And it's trying to detect if an accident will happen, where it's coming from, how to avoid that accident if possible. And it's getting better and better all the time because, of course, Tesla is putting out upgrades over the air all the time. So this is the kind of thing where other auto manufacturers, in order to be as safe as possible, should be licensing this technology. They should be purchasing the hardware and licensing the software from Tesla and getting the over-the-air updates. Because even now, before full self-driving has even been solved, it makes their vehicles way safer than any other car on the road. So what's standing in the way of this? Well, number one is probably profits, because it's going to cost these auto manufacturers a couple $1,000s to have this, probably more like $3,000 or $4,000, reasonably speaking. If Corey Steuben and Sandy Monroe are correct, it costs Tesla somewhere around $2,000 for the hardware and everything everything. And of course, Tesla is going to need to make a reasonable profit, especially on the software and everything. So probably $4,000. So that's a big pill to swallow for auto manufacturers. The second thing is that probably Tesla won't license it to anyone that's not making EVs. So you can just cut gas cars right out of that equation. But then the third really big thing, which is kind of dumb, is pride. And I could see Ford, GM, Volkswagen, etc. just having too much pride in saying we are not going to license this because we don't want to say we have Tesla technology in our vehicle. It's not a good look for them. In all honesty, I think the monetary aspect, of course, it's a rather expensive thing to put into the vehicles. But if you start looking at a car, especially like a BMW or a Mercedes, an Audi, something like that, that they're charging a lot of money for already, those vehicles could easily, bundle that cost in, or you could at least sell it as an option so that you could get an upgraded option with the, active safety and potentially the full self-driving beta that Teslas have. But there's a level of pride that these companies have in not having third-party hardware and software in them, which is also, again, kind of stupid because most of legacy auto these days is a conglomeration of third-party hardware and software that's all shoved into their vehicles. So, I think it just comes down to the fact that they don't want to admit that they have to use Tesla's technology. But after yesterday's video where I talked about how Volkswagen is basically giving up on their software development program, and part of that, of course, is the hardware that makes the software possible, why not just license Tesla's hardware and software technology? They should be the ones who should immediately be going to Tesla. They can get rid of billions of dollars of development. I mean, it costs Tesla a lot of money and time to develop this hardware and software, and Volkswagen wouldn't have to do that. They could just come to Tesla and they could say, for our EVs, the ID3, the ID4, et cetera, they could say, could you please allow us to purchase this, add it as an option to these vehicles, license the software, and also Tesla could capture some revenue from that because, of course, they could charge for things like the premium connectivity that they currently do for Teslas, etc. So they could make money on the front end, but they could also make money on the back end, and they could also capture a great deal of the percentage of if the person wants to enable full self-driving on these other vehicles. But anyway, in terms of safety, there is no question that other companies should be licensing Tesla's active safety technology. Whether they will or not, I kind of doubt that they're going to in the near term because, again, I think, number one, it's going to cost them some money and they're not going to want to do that. But again, they could pass that on to the consumer as an option. But I think the big thing is going to be the pride aspect. I think they're just not going to be willing to do it because they don't want to admit that they can't win and that Tesla already won in this field. Should they? Absolutely. Will they? Maybe somebody will. I mean, Volkswagen would be the company that I would think that might do that at this point, given what they're doing with Cariad. My personal bet is no, but I think that they should do that. But the interesting thing is if one auto manufacturer does this, I think that other ones will get in line behind them because they'll realize what a huge benefit this is, that they don't have to do the research and development to get this technology. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it fun and interesting and thought-provoking. If you did, please do like it so other people can find it. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. Also, let me know in the comments what you think about people licensing Tesla's technology. First of all, do you think that Tesla should sell it or should they keep it as a competitive advantage? And remember, this is a safety thing. And Tesla has traditionally said that they want to enable as much safety in the world as possible. So I'll be curious to know what you think about that. If you disagree that they should or shouldn't do this, let me know in the comments. Also, definitely let me know which auto manufacturers you think might be the first ones to potentially license Tesla's technology. In the meantime, as always, thank you all so much to my Patreon patrons and my YouTube channel members. You all are the best. You enable this. And basically the second half of this video came out of a conversation with one of my Patreon patrons. So thank you so much. And of course, if you want to join the team, just check out the link in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, success is a possible outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on. So check it out. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a solar roof, a Powerball, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, from my father's office, I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.